crap, is it at the time? I need to go to bed to get up for work tomorrow," was a genuine reaction of mine when playing the Nioh beta. So I think it's fair to say I got rather immersed into it. So if you just want a quick opinion of the game, clearly I think it was good. But if you want to hear a bit more in depth about it, well, that's what the rest of the video is for. So buckle up and prepare to die. Okay, let's get the obvious elephant in the room out the way first. This game is very similar to Dark Souls. It's a challenging action RPG with a combat system built around managing a limited stamina bar, where you can only level up at save points and any unused experience is dropped at death, unless you are able to reach the same point to reclaim it without dying. You are also able to summon in another player to help you, or fight the phantoms of other players who you can identify by the grave markers left behind from where they died. So now that's out the way, what makes this game different from Dark Souls? The first big difference comes in the form of the combat. And while I described the combat as similar to Dark Souls by being built around a limited stamina bar, what differentiates this is that the stamina bar seems much smaller and more limited when compared to the Souls series. This appears to be due to the key pulse mechanic, where a timed button press can restore some of your stamina bar, akin to the active reload from Gears of War. It can be a very useful mechanic for when you want to continue to press the offensive, but I was unsure about it in general use. But I did grow more used to it and fond of it as I practiced with it, as here's a classic bit of risk versus reward design, as you have to decide between going for the key pulse or acting defensively and forfeiting the stamina bar recovery. An extension of this stamina bar management is the stance system, where you can change between low, medium and high stance, with varying levels of stamina consumption, speed and power. Though by the end of the playthrough, I found myself relying on just high stance, as single powerful attacks, then dodging or moving away, seemed to work best for managing the stamina bar and the danger of enemies. In a similar vein to this is the selection of different weapon types that behave in a similar way to the stances, varying your power, speed and stamina consumption. What I think is pretty neat with these is that you can invest skill points to get new abilities and perks for these different weapons. But as well as via level ups, these skill points are naturally gained through mastery of the weapon types via using them. And while I couldn't see an experience or level meter for these, I presume it's tied to the standard exponential curve model, which would encourage experimenting with the different weapon types, especially as the skill points aren't tied to the specific weapon that you use to get that skill point. It's a clever bit of design to incentivize a player experimenting and gaining variety instead of just relying on one strategy. Now what can be annoying with this is obviously to experiment with different stuff, you need to obtain a bunch of different stuff, so you get a lot of loot. Too much in my opinion. I feel it would be better to either provide less but more meaningful loot, or some kind of way to ditch equipment of lower power, because as it is, I've had bits where I've spent 5 minutes just selling off all the stuff I don't want. It can get fairly tedious. The second big difference with this game is the way it's structured. Rather than a big connected world, here the game is split up into separate missions you select from a map screen. Though each of these main mission areas still feels fairly substantive, so this didn't feel like a big downside to me, especially as this structure allows sub-missions with smaller areas if you have less time available, as well as the addition of Twilight missions. After getting through the missions in the beta, these Twilight missions unlock, and are harder versions of the missions you have already beaten, which adds a decent bit of replay value to this already substantial beta. And to go along with this level structure, we get an outright story with a defined main character loosely based on a real person, and cutscenes at the end of the missions. Though, from what little of this there is in the beta, it's hard to judge, other than commenting on some of the weirdness in it, like using a cat as a clock, which has left me so confused I can't even come up with a crappy joke about it. I suppose the weirdness could be explained by saying it's a very Japanese game, which leads on to the last main difference, the setting. Here, the game has a demonic feudal Japan style, similar to Onimusha or Ninja Gaiden, and there's a very good reason for this, as the game is made by Team Ninja of Ninja Gaiden fame. Though, the apparent lack of jiggle physics being shoved in your face may make you question if it is actually developed by Team Ninja. If I'm to be brutally honest, there are still a couple of rough edges to the game, with some glitches and the occasional questionable hit detection. But given this is a beta, this doesn't seem too big a deal, especially as from what I've heard, given I didn't play it myself, the beta has had some major changes when compared to the previous alpha version they released. So, I have faith that these rough edges will be smoothed out by the time of the full game release. So in conclusion, I really like Nioh's beta, and while there's some neat tweaks to the formula to make it distinct from Dark Souls, if you don't like Dark Souls, it's unlikely you'll like Nioh, as they are very similar beasts. But if you do like Dark Souls, this is definitely a game to keep your eye on, and it's got me in the mood for this kind of game. Maybe I'll actually open up that copy of Bloodborne I've had sitting on my shelf for months.